Jerry Levitan is here. He's a filmmaker, and he's like, you just said I was 37. He was like, I don't know, are you? You're not. Anyway, we're talking about Jerry, but if you're just joining us, you've recently done this beautiful, lovely, charming video to one of Yoko Ono's poems. But I want to start at the beginning of your story. Back in 1969, you're 14.
Well, I was born in Toronto, in a hospital setting.
Right.
Like many people.
And not many years after that, you were sneaking into John Lennon's hotel room. 14.
Yeah, it was May 1969. The Beatles were as big as ever, about to split up. People didn't know that, but they were in the middle of recording Abbey Road, and there was a rumor John Lennon was spotted at the Toronto airport. So I didn't go to school that morning. I went to around this time in the morning to the King Edward Hotel, went to the top floor and knocked on every door until I found him.
Wasn't there security?
No, there wasn't. I mean, first of all, the times were different, but the Beatles always had security of one sort or another. But in those days, John, Yoko, and the other Beatles, too, would sometimes go incognito. So, they didn't announce, John Yoko did not announce that they were in Toronto.
So he comes to the door, what, in his bathrobe or something, Jerry, and says...
Well, basically, it's a very long story, but basically... I knocked on the door. It opened up a little bit, and I said, Canadian News, and I just barged my way in. I was staring.
As a 14-year-old.
As a 14-year-old. I was just staring at my feet and just walked into this hotel suite, and then sat down because I saw a tripod and looked up, and John and Yoko were sitting about this far away from me, and they were in the middle of an interview on air, like a taped interview, and his PR person, the Beatles PR person, Derek Taylor, was about to move towards me, and John went like that and just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So actually in that interview, it might have been the CBC, I think, in that interview, you can see John like looking at me and sort of laughing and being distracted. And then ultimately, I got into the act. So.
We have a little clip. Let's show
This is of the animated short film that you made of that encounter.
Exactly. I had a 30-minute taped interview with John. I edited it down to 5 minutes and turned it into an animated film that was nominated for an Oscar. So.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
John, could you please tell us what the situation is with you and your entering the United States?
A lot of people don't want me in, They think I'm going to cause a violent revolution, which I'm not. And the others don't want me in because they don't want me to cause peace either, Because peace is big. War is big business, and they like war because it keeps them fat and happy. And I'm anti-war, so they're trying to keep me out. But I'll get in, because they'll have to own up in public that they're against peace,
So you ended up speaking to him for how long?
Well, the taped interview was 30 minutes, but I hung out there for the better part of the day.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Did anyone believe you the next day? I guess you had the recording there. So.
Well, here's the thing. It was in ancient times, right? So you didn't have instant representation of what you would do. So I had film, I had Super 8 footage, I had a camera with me, photos, the tape recorder. I didn't get a copy of the tape until about 2 weeks later. The film wasn't developed for a couple of weeks, so very few people believed me until I actually got the results.
No kidding. You can't go to school the next day and say, I just hung with John and Yoko all day yesterday. Now everybody's like, whatever.
Well, word was spreading. Word was spreading fast. And actually, when I left the hotel room, it was around 6, 7 in the evening, there were already crowds, and there were kids, and there was a couple kids from my school saw me and started shrieking because they saw me walk out of his hotel suite. The police had cordoned it off. So word was spreading. The girls basically believed me, and the boys didn't.
Ooh, that must have given you a huge cachet with the opposite sex.
No kidding. How did you end up, or why did you turn this into an animated short?
I was sort of, believe it or not, tired of talking about it. I was approached for years and years by people who wanted to buy my material, turn it into documentaries. I just never liked what we talked about. I didn't want to exploit it. So I basically did it for myself and my kids. Mm-hmm. I thought, okay, I'm going to do something wacky and leave it that way. There was no expectation it was going to go anywhere, and it just started winning awards in film festivals around the world, and then, you know, the Oscars. So.
At that age, did you realize already the significance of what just happened, that you hung out with John Lennon?
The moment I looked up and I saw John Yoko, I knew my life was going to change, and it was a profound experience.
And was that your
any question?
Was that your first film that you had made?
I Met the Walrus.
Yeah.
I've made you know, a few other things, like small things. You know, I was an actor. I've always done all kinds of nutty stuff, but it was the first cohesive thing I've made.
So Yoko sees it, loves it, and now you've made My Hometown, which is another animated film based on her work.
Yeah, I've made it with Eggplant, which is a local Toronto production company, really edgy, great guys, and Terry Tompkins co-produced it and co-directed it with me. My daughter Rebecca did the illustrations for it. Yoko had seen her work before and liked it. And Sharmil Haladin, a local fellow, animated it wonderfully. So it was a very obscure Yoko piece of prose that she had forgotten whether it was published or not, and it lent itself very well to animation.
It's so pretty. I just, when I watched this yesterday, I just felt sort of transported by it.
Oh, thank you.
She's a good narrator.
She is. She didn't commit to narrating it. She left the door open, which is very typical Yoko. She's open to all things, but doesn't commit until she's comfortable. Right. And sent her a very rough cut of the film, very rough cut. And I got a call asking when she'd like to, when I'd like her to record. Right. So I said, well, sort of as soon as possible, because we had to send something to Italy. And she went 2 days later in the studio and recorded the voiceover.
Amazing. We just showed a little bit, but let's let people listen for just a second as well, because it's really lovely.
Get a map of the world. Pin a little flag on a place on the map you'd like to go to. The place you put your flag is your hometown.
She certainly isn't original. Do you think she's gotten a bad rap after all these years?
Well, she's had a bad rap for decades, but I think she's pretty universally accepted around the world as the real thing, as an original thinker, a very inspired person. I mean, in her day, you know, when John started going out with her, she was vilified in a racist way. I mean, there would be headlines that, you know, would just say terrible things, and she put up with that. I mean, to this day, how many people will you say, oh, Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles, you know, which is sort of ridiculous. But I think she's pretty well recognized now as an incredible figure of the 20th century.
Well, the film is really interesting, and so we're seeing it. It's being launched tonight at Tattoo Rock Parlor. A number of artists will be singing Yoko Ono covers, including Edwin of I, Mother Earth and Tom Wilson of Blackie and the Rodeo Kings.
And could I just say this one thing? The
Please.
film and her poem is a message, an incredible message about peace, about love, about companionship and community. And My Hometown basically means we should all think that everyone in the world comes from a hometown and that there's something special about it, no matter where they are. So that's the message.
Is it ever? Jerry Levitan, My Hometown. You can get more information on our website tonight about the film launch. Thanks for being here and chatting with us.
You guys are great. This is a great setting.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll tell Yoko.